Okay, everybody. Hello. Welcome to this quick little video, not quite as edited as all my other stuff, but still, I put this much effort in every time, no matter what. This is a video about AutoHDR and its current state of things in October of 2025. So my experience with AutoHDR is I watched a YouTuber take a look at Auto HDR a few months back. Let me pull that video up real fast, actually. So it was Jonathan Corbett right here, who has his own YouTube channel and real estate company. And he was looking at this 7 months ago in March. And as I was looking at it, I was thinking like, okay, interesting that it's kind of like seeking to automate this window pull technology, or just basically create technology to automate it. But as you can see, he's pointing out in this video, there are color problems, which there still are, but not quite this bad. And the window pull technology has just blown me away as far as like the current contemporary model of Auto HDR. It's come a long way in just a few months, but I was looking at this and I was like, this is okay, but it's not, not completely like reliable, I think, without having to go into Photoshop and just make a billion color layers and have to do all this like great automated window pulls. But like at the end of the day, I don't care that strongly about that. It's the color issues that I was having with it. So all that to say, I've been very impressed with where it's arrived at. It's come so far. And I've been throwing in my own files, kind of testing it out. I'm sure a lot of you guys have been doing this too. Just kind of seeing what it can do and the state of things right now. So at the moment, I believe we're on V3 or V2. I'm not sure exactly what is out to the public at the moment. It says it's been trained on like 1.2 million real estate photos. And I am very pleasantly surprised with the results, to the point that I am thinking of integrating Auto HDR into my 2026 workflow and pricing, which I know is kind of crazy for me, the Atlas image flambient guy, to say. But at the end of the day, it's like I've said in, I think, previous videos, and if I haven't, I'll say it here. I have been underpricing myself terribly this year. I've basically just been using my opportunities to do my mid-grade HDR photography level as a way to practice Flash. So I've been spoiling my clients as far as like what they have to pay for really high-end work, where I'm taking at least an hour, if not more, on site, and then 2 to 3 hours editing it myself. And I'm charging like at the moment like 150 in my area for like 1250 to 1500 square feet houses. And that's like, I need to really change what I've got going on here. And I think the Auto HDR is going to be the way for me to do that in the next year. And I'm going to start rolling it out with certain clients now, I think. But I'm very impressed with what it's got, and the fixes to fix anything that's slightly off are doable in my own ways. And I might make videos about that in the future, where once I have like a shoot or two that has been fully done through Auto HDR, for the interiors. I don't think I'm going to use Auto HDR for exteriors because I think my action works a little bit better. So until I see exteriors really improve, I'm just going to continue to use my action, which is really quick anyway. Exteriors are very fast for me. So I'll probably still be doing that. All my interior work for HDR stuff is probably going to go through Auto HDR now. So once I have a few shoots of that under my belt, I could maybe use those as examples for YouTube videos here, where I show like ways to fix certain problems that Auto HDR might have at this current point in time. Because it could get to a point where these kind of videos are irrelevant, and if so, awesome. Click off the video, doesn't matter anymore. But as of right now, for those who are paying attention to this stuff, which I think everyone is in some way or another, and like as far as using AI and stuff like that, my stance at the end of the day on this is like where we draw the line, right? We're not like generating new images from other people's work. We took the shots and we're using software to blend it all together and achieve a final product. At the end of the day, it's just a more advanced, superior version of throwing a DNG into Lightroom and putting minus 100 highlights plus 100 shadows. That's really what it is. And it's like for a human to, you know, edit a house with HDR, like it just takes so long to do, which is why we outsource it. And then we have all of these problems of people not getting their photos back on time. And just to be perfectly honest, I don't think that there's that strong of a like moral character in the zeitgeist over on that part of the world. And that's not me being xenophobic or racist. It's like you look at how many scam calls come from India, and it's just kind of like in the atmosphere, it's in the culture. I'm not like blaming the race or the nation or anything like that, but like you are probably more susceptible to peer pressure, giving into that kind of stuff in that culture over there. Doesn't excuse it at all, but like I see so many people get frustrated with their editors because they're just not coming through, and they have to go to a bunch of different editors and stuff to achieve something that a computer has the ability to do. And we're arriving there now. That's kind of how I see that. And so it just makes a lot of sense to do this so much faster and get results back the same day. And you know, I think that's great for us. So seek better lines of work. For you editors, I don't know. It's just the way of things at times. And it's like, I have been in that position of like, I have to do all this editing, and I want that to kind of go away. Yeah. Anyway, so this video ultimately is about what AutoHDR is able to accomplish with JPEGs, because I'm very surprised, and I've done this little test here to show you guys my results and my findings, and just kind of talk a bit more about maybe like your methodology and thought process into how you handle uploading files to AutoHDR. So AutoHDR is able to accept JPEGs and RAW files, and claims to be able to output results that are just as good with JPEGs. And I'm like, okay. I mean, obviously you have less data to work with. You have very minimal white balance data. So you have to do extreme color correction to these JPEGs to get them to a result that looks acceptable. As far as like a color corrected image goes, and you have much less latitude with a JPEG than with a RAW. So how is it going to do that? And I'm just very surprised at the results, but makes a lot of sense. You know, they're like 3 times smaller. My camera outputs like 10 to 11 megabyte JPEGs. And then the RAW files are anywhere from like 25 to 35 megabytes or so. And it just, from what I can tell, with where AutoHDR is right now, I don't think it leans super heavily on the data set that's in a RAW file. It doesn't seem to do that. It kind of seems to ignore it, actually. And I'll get into that here in a moment. So my thought process was like, what happens? Like, what is the latitude that AutoHDR has with just JPEGs over RAW? Like, what is built into its model that really thrives? Like, what can it get out of a JPEG, and what happens if I change JPEGs, you know? Because like I can flip the slider on a RAW file on the white balance all the way to the blue. I'm not really doing anything to the RAW file, but like if I feed it a hard-coded like, pixels of like blue data, where I just like set the white balance into something crazy, and that I was like, okay, I need to test this out. I need to figure out like what happens when you throw wildly different things into AutoHDR for the JPEG. So this was a shoot that I did quite a while ago. This is when I still wasn't doing anything really with Flash. I had, I think I had my 8200 at this point, but I wasn't actively using it for every shoot. And I was using a HDR flash window pull hybrid method here, where I would take 5 brackets and then I would do a window pull shot with my flash, which ended up working okay. I don't think I still have these images on hand. If I do, I will put them up now. But the images came out looking okay. I would just throw like a Lightroom preset on the thing and then pull that and the window pull into Photoshop, darken blend mode, and I got okay results out of it. So the reason I'm using this as an example is when I was on site, I was taking these brackets of, at this point, I don't think I was futzing with the exposure compensation. So I was shooting pretty much every bracket at 0. And on this camera, I'm pretty sure this was my GH6 and not my GH4. But I was just taking these 5 shots at -2, -1, 0, +1, +2. And then I would take my window pull shots with the flash. And on this shoot in particular, I would do a repair shot for the window pulls every single time, no matter what. So for this shoot in particular, I actually had window pull layers I could use to throw into AutoHDR. And the results will look pretty decent, as you'll see in a bit here. But like obviously -2 was 1/30th of a second, ISO 400. And like there's just no, like the windows aren't working there if we want window views. So this is 1/60th of a second at ISO 200. I don't know why I was doing 1/60th instead of 250, but oh well. But yeah, as you can see, that's fine. So I threw these 6 JPEGs into AutoHDR with various settings applied. So I'll show you that here now. Here is the final blended image of just those normal JPEGs with unchanged. Oh, by the way, I should say, these JPEGs are actually the raw files, and I exported them as full size, full resolution, 100 quality, 300 PPI JPEGs. That's what these are. I used the raw files to change all of these sets of JPEGs for all these different settings. Just so you know, these aren't the JPEGs that came out of the camera. This is the raw files with nothing applied to them. They're set to, I think, camera natural, and they have a lens correction on it. And that's basically it. And I exported these as full-size JPEGs and threw them into AutoHDR and got this. As you can see, it's pretty good. The original white balance from the as shot setting with auto white balance on my camera was about 4,600. And as you can see, pretty solid color. I would say it's a little stark. It's a little like cold. And that's my one big critique with AutoHDR right now, is that it does the sterile clinical white walls. And I don't like that at all. As you'll find out as going through this, some of these settings kind of alleviate that a little bit, interestingly enough. So as you can see, the window pulls, it's like kind of struggling a bit around the edges on this guy, but like the bloom is like, it's just not there. That's one thing I'm so impressed with AutoHDR, is that it can't really fix like haze, because sometimes when there's like really strong glare and flare coming in from windows, the flare is its own problem, but there's like a haze of light that kind of covers certain things, and AutoHDR can't, or at least doesn't yet, do much about that. And you can see a bit of it here on this this crazy horse thing right here, where there's just a bit of haze. But yeah, not bad. So I thought, okay, also I got to point out, AutoHDR currently exports a 3 megabyte image. That's full resolution, and it claims to be, I think, like 180 PPI. But as soon as you zoom in, the image just falls apart. It's like, this is just like not great. It's not horrible. And granted, not a lot of people are zooming into these, but like some people, like some agents want print worthy photos, and AutoHDR is just not putting that out right now. And it might be the problem with the model. We'll see. So anyway, next image, did the same thing, had the raw files set to camera natural, just kit lens corrections applied. I changed the white balance, changed it up to 5800, and then exported it as JPEGs, threw it into AutoHDR, got this. So as you can see, it like everything is warmed up, but it's still color corrected. And you can definitely see like an increase in warmth. It's still doing a very strong color correction on the walls. And for whatever reason, it also kind of changed the perspective a bit. But I would say it really helps with the wood colors. The wood colors look a little too cool here. A little richer here. Obviously too much. I just wanted to crank it up noticeably, which like 5,800 level JPEGs, like they look like this. Like this is what they looked like when I threw them in. Like they were toasty. They were toasty for sure. But like, look at that. Pretty impressive, right? And this was my whole thought process, was like, okay, so you're telling me I can throw JPEGs in and it will work, assuming I have auto white balance turned on. We all know that auto white balance doesn't always cut the mustard. Some rooms just look way too warm. Some of them, most often than not, it's too warm, right? And like, especially when we're looking back at files after the fact, or when we're giving them to the editor, it's like some of those look a little orange, and they don't often look too cool. But most of the time, I'd say 75 to 80% of the time, auto white balance does pretty well. Maybe a tad warm, at least for my camera, but occasionally just gets it totally wrong. So I was like, what happens if we crank it up? And it's like, this is recoverable. You know, this is definitely warmer than this. In a way, it's less pleasant. It's just too much. And by the way, at the very end, I tried 5,500 exactly to see what that gave me. We'll look at that in a bit. You can tell that the window pulls are something kind of weird happened on the color with the window pulls on this one too. Maybe that was a tint issue. I don't know. But so there's that. And I'm like, okay, what happens if I crank it down to 2,800? There's no color. It's gone, which I'm curious. Like if as you can see, like some colors weren't affected as much. Like the flowers, like the greens, reds, and yellows seem to do okay. But man, it just like sucked all the blue and orange out. So it's like, what if I crank the saturation to like 50? That actually kind of helps, surprisingly. And like 25 on vibrance. Wow. But yeah, the outside's all weird. That's funny. Anyway, yeah, so obviously if you put images that are way too cool into it, it has no idea what to do with the color. So it seems to be that it's like better warm than cold when it comes to the white balance you feed the AutoHDR with JPEGs on. So interesting there. Then I was like, okay, I want to go down the rabbit hole of adding sharpening to the JPEGs before they go in. Because like I mentioned, it seemed like there was just like such terrible, not noise, but just like artifacting going on with these JPEGs that it was spitting out. And that could just be like a bandwidth thing where they're like, we want to, it's a pretty early on system and there's a lot of people using it. So like maybe it's like a headroom problem. But I was like, what happens if I like pre-sharpen it? Because people have talked about this on YouTube where it's like they find that if they over sharpen a video, it looks better after YouTube has compressed it, which is interesting. Gerald Undone did a video about that. But we're going to do like a side-by-side comparison here. And it's not a crazy... So when I say 80-30, I mean I sharpen it by 80 and then I mask it by 30. And I believe I put a 1.5 radius on and put like 5 to 10 noise reduction. And then I just put a defringe on too, because I like to put on a 4 on each defringe. So I just put that on there as well. But yeah, if we do a side-by-side comparison with this original here, which, hold on, why are you doing this? Okay, this one, there we go. And we zoom in. Also, for whatever reason, the color is better. Which I don't know if that's like a AutoHDR problem where it's just like you could feed it the same thing over and over and over and you might get slightly different results for the color correction, which if that's the case, that's a little worrying. But I mean, I'm not going to complain at the moment. It's at a point where I'm not going to complain. Let me put it there. But I can critique and be like, hey, maybe this could be fixed. But yeah, if we like zoom in, the sharpened one is here on the left and the unsharpened one is on the right. It is sharper. It is definitely sharper, especially like if you look at this plant back here, it's like it's a little soupier here. But it's like also it just helped with the color somehow. I don't know how that worked. It's maybe a bit much, so I might dial it back to like a 50 or 60 on the sharpening, I think. And maybe a bit more noise reduction, but like as you can see, it helps a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. It's not like it definitely is like making things noisier, but there's just I think a touch more clarity to it. And I'm recording this at 1080 at a high bit rate, so hopefully YouTube is showing this okay. And you know, maybe I should just leave things sit so YouTube isn't compressing as much, getting the most out of the bit rate. Anyway, as you can see, it does something. So like I think there could be something to be said for like preparing our files. Like we get home, throw the raws and JPEGs, whatever, onto the computer, throw the raws in the Lightroom, apply a preset. Like literally, this just needs to be a preset. Just like boom, all images get it, and then export as full-size JPEGs. And when I do that, they at 300 ppi, they come out the same size as just what my camera puts out for a fine quality JPEG, like 11 megabytes, which is very thankful. I don't have to compress it at all to get that same JPEG level. And then just throw those into AutoHDR, and you're right as rain. I think there's something to be said for that. At the very least with this can be an automated thing where you're throwing a preset on. There's some stuff here in these last few images that I think are worth noting though, and I'll go into that now. So this next one is, whoops, I have those two selected. This next one is the same thing with the sharpening, but I added minus 50 highlights and plus 50 shadows, which is kind of interesting. Like there's obviously a bit of a color shift. This one has more contrast, which I didn't change any settings in AutoHDR because they give you the brightness and contrast sliders and all that. I left all that alone, just took what it gave me. But yeah, this one's like in a way a bit flatter, but it's also more even. The color is like just as good in some areas. Like as you can see, for whatever reason right here, it really like threw a lot of contrast and saturation on like the center of the image, the counter space, and that's not present here or in this one, which is really interesting that it did it here. It has more punch, but like, yeah, this is just lowering every bracket on every single bracket here, down by 50 on highlights, up by 50 on shadows. So if I was to compare it with, say, hold on, how do you do this? I never use reference view. There we go. Is that right? Yeah. Like if I zoom in, so yeah, obviously things are way sharper. You can tell that. The detail, I don't know. I'd say maybe it's like a bit more color accurate. Kind of hard to tell. The hazing is kind of worse around this object here, or just at the very least, it's the same but more obvious, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that changing the, like if I was to compare this with, what did I do? Black and white? Okay, weird. Like if I was to compare these two, that's a better way to do it. Like, do I see much of a difference here? Because not much has changed between these except for highlights and shadows. Yeah, like messing with the highlights and shadows seemed to make the haze worse, which is really fascinating, isn't it? Yeah, the window pulls aren't as good with the 50-50 highlights and shadows. That's an interesting thing. It kind of seemed to clean up this fridge handle. Fascinating. This seems more controlled here. You see that? It's not quite as much of a hot spot. maybe there's something to be said for like lowering and raising by 25 rather than 50. It might not need as much of a, because lowering highlights, I've noticed, creates a really drastic change with just a small amount, if that makes sense. Whereas like shadows, there's diminishing returns very fast. Interesting. Okay. So there's that. Next one is basically this with the 50-50 highlights and shadows, but I have set the correct white balance. I clicked on, I think it was the lampshade, and maybe changed the tint slightly, but it looked way better than this, because this was 460, right? Yeah, 460. And then I think that actually ended up being, because yeah, if you look here, it's maybe a bit too warm. So I think I cooled it down to like 4350 or something like that. And the tint I think was slightly more green. So that's this one here, which honestly I think is the best of the bunch. Interestingly enough, like that changes the exterior. And that was just like, you know, a small change. Like if I look at the 580, you can see it definitely weirder, but like having it be warmer seems to have a better window pull, which makes sense because the exterior is around 54 to 5500 Kelvin. Yeah, so like that's here. The tint is maybe off, but then as soon as I correct the white balance for the inside, the exterior gets noticeably cooler, but the interior, like this, I think is some of the best color of the lot. Like this is super even as far as like realism goes. Like when you compare that to just like the sharpen and defringe, like it's a poppy photo, but when you compare it to this, it's like, oh, this you can just throw like, I don't know, an ounce of saturation or vibrance, some contrast, and like that is good stuff right there, right? So there's that. Again, haloing is not awesome with these settings, but what can you do? So after that, I was like, okay, I want to try again with just the original RAWs, and that's this here, which by the way, when I upload RAWs to either like AutoHDR or I throw them into like my Adobe HDR merge, it loses its 3:2 ratio and goes back to the camera sensor's 4:3. So technically, like whenever I come across that, I would come in here and I would crop it like this. And it comes out the exact same as this stuff here. But as you can see, it's way flatter. But in a way, you have more longitude. So like if I look at this and compare it with the actual JPEGs, which technically there shouldn't really be any difference between these at all. One is RAW, one is JPEG. Nothing else is different. And you can see there's a difference between how these look. This one is like a little bit more punchy, like it had to go through some extra steps. And this is much more of a neutral merge. It also looks like they may not have, like, what are the corrections here? Does this have more barrel distortion? It might. And I was exporting these with, yeah, these got exported with the, like, look at that. You see that? And then I go to this and it's like, huh. I mean, maybe it's just the perspective adjustment, but it looks like there's some distortion added. And then you go to this and it's back to something else. I don't know. But yeah, the thing is, it's really soft. Like if I compare this with like even just the sharpen and defringe here, notable difference, right? Like the raw is not sharp whatsoever. So that is one thing preventing me from uploading just RAWs, and also the fact that it literally takes 3 times longer. It's just a model not built for it. I don't think it looks at the smart data in it at all. And so we kind of have to, I think, work with that in mind. And that, I think, works to our benefit, because we're able to speed up our process, but also kind of have a little bit more creative control as to the images we're putting in and getting out. And so, like I said, this could be outdated at some point. I hope it is. But for right now, I hope that this is helpful for you guys in looking and seeing at what it does. Window pull isn't bad. It's not bad. So the last one I did was just the original JPEGs, but set to 5500, which, as you can just randomly made it punchy again. But this seemed to be like, and also to point out, look at the color adjustment inside. It's much more subtle. Like you compare it with the original white balance, it's like that stark white walls. Here, way less, and I don't know why. Like if I compare that with the 5800, stark white walls here, but this one is like, it didn't do it. So I have a feeling that the results are somewhat inconsistent, at least right now. I don't know why it didn't correct the walls here quite as much. But that's the nice thing about AutoHDR, is that you pay for what you download, not what you upload and get edited, at least right now. And that is a bit of a godsend, because when we get back soupy stuff, we can just throw it back in and hope for a better cook, you know? So this does seem to be like a better balance of, an interior and exterior, like white balance is having so this is set to daytime. If I had it set to like maybe 5,000, it could have gotten good results. Cause looking at this one, I definitely think it's just a bit too cool, in a way, which is crazy to say looking at what I fed it, cause this feels a bit too warm. In some ways. So there's also, you have to consider this day, this scene that I was shooting, every white balance is different for every day and location combination, right? That's just the nature of the beast. So I hope this was helpful. I will add these in a zip file for a Dropbox file down below if you guys want to take a closer look at any of these. But I think that the definitive results for me, the thing that I learned about this is that it would behoove me, once I start using this, and I will be mentioning this when I do AutoHDR videos in the future, it will behoove me to apply a preset to the actual raw files I get out of the shoot, to sharpen it by, let's say, 60, mask of 30. I'll throw my defringe on. I'll try out 25 for the highlights and shadows, and I will make sure my lens correction, all that is good. And that's probably the most that I will do, and for a preset. And then I will go through and just basically for each shot or each room, I'll set the white balance to be a bit closer to what I think it should be. Or at the very least, take a look at it and kind of have in my head, okay, so should I warm this up? Will this get a benefit from being warmed? Because as you can see, I put this down to 4350 or something like that. And when you lower the white balance, you lose any kind of warmth you have outside. So that's just, at least for this attempt. Maybe on other attempts, not so much. But yeah, I maybe will be intentional about the white balance. And then I also will probably be building a finishing preset that will go in and maybe apply extra straightening if it needs it, some noise reduction, possibly some saturation, like a color mixer adjustment, perhaps. Maybe boost the whites a little bit. I don't know, add extra contrast, very subtle things just to push it in the right direction. I have an exterior preset that does that for me, which I can actually apply to this real quick. I'll show you. It's the exterior finishing bump. And it literally just it's like a +10 to contrast, a little bit of contrast in the whites and blacks there, 5 clarity, 10 saturation, 10 green, 10 blue, and that's probably it. I think it, yeah, that's all it does. So it's just like a tiny amount of punch that it adds to the photo, which it's more apparent here because this is an interior, but I'll probably do something like that for Auto HDR. I've kind of toyed with that a little bit, and yeah, we'll kind of see where we go from there. So I hope you guys have been enjoying Auto HDR, figuring it out. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you got something out of it. It was kind of long form, casual stuff. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Eager to continue to monitor this software, and really looking forward to how it's going to kind of shape the landscape of the business going forward. So that's all I got for you guys. Hope you enjoyed. Until next time, take care, fare thee well, and Godspeed.